Welcome to the Fixing Incentives podcast, where we talk about the incentives that drive success. Now, let's get started with the show.
David Melamed here. I'm the host of Fixing Incentives podcast, where I talk with top business leaders about their journey and the behavior that powered their growth. I have Dr. Jeremy Weiss here of Rise 25, who has done thousands of interviews with successful entrepreneurs and CEOs, and we have flipped the script and he'll be interviewing me.
David, I'm excited. I'm excited because you are a treasure trove of knowledge when it comes to tools and software. We could be in a group setting talking with 15 people and someone will ask a question and you will immediately be like, oh, rattle off three random software solutions of what they're asking for. Someone was asking, I forgot how to bring in a script from something. I didn't even know what they were asking. And you had three solutions for it. So I'm excited to hear your favorite tools and software. And before we get into that, this episode is brought to you by Tenfold Traffic. We've talked about this before. If you've listened to his podcast, he takes projects currently on a performance-based relationship, which means all marketing would go through him on his own dime. He would negotiate a revenue share. He doesn't want to take someone's money unless he's generated them return on that money. So I know that is what you're focused on. You're only going to take a couple companies a year to pour your heart and soul into. So your ideal partner is someone who has a converting funnel, they can handle scale, and they let you work your magic so you can help dominate the market. So if you have questions, you can go to david@tenfoldtraffic.com, email them, or davidmelamed.com. It's David, MELAMED.com. So let's talk about tools and software. What comes to mind of your favorites? Like if these broke down, you would not be happy.
So my favorite tool, it's a little low tech, but it's Google. One of the benefits of working in search engine marketing for so long is you understand how the search engines understand pages, so you kind of get a little smarter about how you search for things. So I'm usually able to find tools, solutions, things like that other people might not be able to surface. Google's by far my favorite tool. Probably my least known, most useful tool I use is something called Workflowy, which is just this really smart, really intuitive list building tool with all sorts of threaded layers and hashtags and things like that you could do really cool things with. But for at least someone like me, where my mind works it's methodical, it's pattern driven, but it's also all over the place. So lists are really the best way for me to just stay on top of things and stay organized. So Workflowy, that's WORKFLOWY.com, by far my favorite tool based on what I would call, I think they call it the toothbrush test, which is what tool do you use twice a day? That's probably the number one thing there. I just discovered recently, I probably heard about it a few years ago, but only started using SaneBox. SaneBox is amazing. It's helped me basically clear all the things that are distractions in my inbox away and lets me address them when I need to address them, and does all sorts of cool stuff. So I'm a very big fan of that tool. Zoom I use every day.
Are there any other ones like Workflowy that are like little lesser known, but you use a lot of?
So this is lesser known. I'm surprised how many people don't know it. And by far the most impactful tool I've ever needed to use, especially in an agency setting. It essentially lets you automate the majority of the reporting you're doing by recording your mouse clicks in Excel. So it's called Power Query for Excel. It's an add-on. If you want to advance beyond that, it's Power BI, which is a Microsoft BI tool similar to Tableau, has this built in there. But Power Query for Excel will essentially, if let's say you have to pull in 3 reports and run pivot tables and do an index match to match the data. Maybe you're trying to match CRM customer sales to ad spend or to analytics or something. All you have to do is do it once with Power Query, and it will record all the steps you take and show you this list. You could go back and edit them and change them, remove them, add them, and then just hit save. The next week, you need to run the same report. Just download the same reports. Make sure the file name is exactly the same, saved in the same folder. So you're basically writing over the old files, and then you just hit, you open up one of the files and you hit play in Power Query, and it'll just run all the manipulations you did on that data on the prior week's data this week. When I have an analyst who showed it to me. If this was a report that I needed to do for a client that was very custom, was taking about 10 hours a week to do, he distilled it down into about 5 to 7 minutes a week. Just with this one simple add-on to Excel. And like, I was just talking to my sister the other day, and she's an Excel expert, like really deep, writing, Visual Basic Code and macros, all that stuff. And she didn't know about Power Query and Excel. So by far, it's easy to learn, and it's just amazing. But that's probably,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say SaneBox and Power Query are also very big time-saving tools. Or are there any other time-saving tools, whether it's a phone app or desktop app?
So, I feel like I'm almost being queued up to say Text Expander, because you introduced me to that a month or two ago, which is really awesome. You just write these text shortcuts for anything. So like my Calendly link is really hard to, find, remember. I have different ones. I just have a bunch of shortcuts, like my shortcut number, the letter Z. So I just type Z30 space, Z15 space, Z60 space, and those will just open up my hour-long, my 15-minute or my 30-minute calendar invite links. So that's really, really awesome. But I really want to answer the question differently with Integromat. I think Integromat is the least known, most important tool. I don't understand why it's not the first integration built into every website, every software, every API. It's like Zapier, however you pronounce it, but it's way more versatile. It's significantly cheaper, and you could just do so much more with it. You can add, calculate metrics, and you could write code on top of it, even basic stuff, but you could build really complex logic, really smart apps, and it powers the majority of my all our dashboards and the reporting we're doing. It's piping through Integromat. I recently had an issue where I needed to stay on top of, let's say, budgets for a client, and the alerts weren't so great. It took us like 10 minutes to set up in Integromat. I now get an email, every Monday morning with each client, how much budget they have allocated for the month, how much we spent, and how much we have available. So it's really, really
why do you
awesome.
think people don't use it as much?
I think they just don't know about it. It's maybe a little more technical than a Zapier, but it's also a little more versatile. So it's probably better for a programmer or someone who's semi-tech savvy that wants to get much more done quicker. Don't get me wrong, they probably have millions upon millions of users. It's just not as known. And this goes as far as my analyst, who's been doing work for me on the side for about 3-4 years now. He actually got recruited away from his job to go work at Integromat, just because he did so many complex things with it for us. So now he's actually internally there. So I'm an even bigger fan.
That's awesome. Any other also time-saving tools? Just to mention, you mentioned one thing that comes to my mind. I don't know if there's WordPress plugins as well, but I use PrettyLink a lot. PrettyLink is a free plugin, and you could basically, like you were saying, people forget, like, I don't even know my Zoom, the Zoom link has got like a bunch of numbers on it. So I just set up a PrettyLink that is from our URL with, Rise 25, /Zoom or Jeremy Zoom, and it just redirects to my Zoom link. So I don't have to try and remember these links. So PrettyLink. So I don't know if there's any plugins or apps like that.
So, I wasn't familiar with PrettyLink. I probably would have just hard coded that myself if I knew about it. I'm trying to think. In terms of time-saving tools, I guess I don't really. I'm like trying to think which like browser plugins I kind of have that I use
Do you have
pretty
Chrome
often.
extensions that are I mean, it doesn't have to be time saving, just things you use regularly.
So, I have a plugin that some agency built called Redirect Path that I use pretty often. And it just very quickly shows me if there's a redirect on the path of the URL I just opened. So, if I'm ever diagnosing an issue with a website, like why is Google rejecting ads on this page, or what's wrong with it? It's usually a very quick, easy way to see if there's a problem with the URL. Is there like, a redirect loop or something like that going on? I Tag Assistant, which now looks like a legacy tool, but that lets me see which, if like your Google Analytics tag is firing correctly. And also, if you have Tag Manager, you can actually track the flow of interactions to actually see which events are firing as you interact with the website. So to troubleshoot tracking issues, that's something I use pretty often. Built with is, I use it as a Chrome extension. I use that very often, which tells you all the different softwares and codes running on a specific website. So if I want to quickly see, what ad networks my competitors might be using, I'll open that up and see if I could see which conversion tags are showing up on their website. So that's a pretty nifty tool. There's a lot of research tools I use, like SimilarWeb and Ahrefs and SEMrush and a few others as the needs come up. But Google's still my favorite tool.
Yeah. I love to go on, like you mentioned, Integromat. What I love to go on is Integromat or other companies and click on integrations. And then I can see all the different things I've never heard of that actually integrate with it.
That's genius. And not only do I agree with you about that, and not only do I do that myself, I don't know how to do this, and I'm probably not the right person to do it, but I actually think that there is a PPC ad network opportunity for someone to create a like promoted integration link page. Because I actually think that, people, the reason why Google works so well is people are telling you what they're looking for in the moment. When someone's looking at an integration page on their website, you kind of know what they're looking for in the moment. They're looking to solve a specific challenge within that specific tool set. So if you have that integration, like in my mind, that's like the best kind. It's contextual. It's like, it's relevant. And companies, if they were really smart, would actually start trying to leverage those things. So I do think there's a very big opportunity with someone to build some sort of either an integrations tool page that is hosted, that has, some sort of pay-per-click ad network built into it for the different partners to promote their links on integration pages. But regardless, it's a brilliant strategy, and I do it all the time. Something I'll also do is I'll look at the backlinks going to the integration page, and or the API page or the site, and I'll try to look for other partners and integrations that way. But there's no question that that's a great way to discover new tools. And more often than not, you could also go to the feature requests. So a lot of sites, even if they don't have the integration today, there'll be a feature request with upvotes, and you can actually see which integrations. It's interesting because when I go to a lot of sites, especially newer startups, I'll see like a bunch of integrations, but it turns out it's not really real integrations. It's just Zapier across the board.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But then I'll go to feature requests, and the number one feature request is Integromat. Because the people putting in the feature requests are probably the more technical people, the developers and people like that. They're using the API, and that just makes it. And I think that they all want Integromat over Zapier or Zapier, or however you pronounce it. But but yeah, I love that too. Integration pages, partner pages, excellent way to discover new tools. Lots of fun also.
What's cool about Integromat, they're super fast. Like in the apps and services, when I type in like sales, it instantly just shows the search of all this. Like you said, it's a great search engine of like, if you're looking for sales tools or whatever type of tools, I type in sales and there's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 7 different companies or types of software that show up in Integromat, so you could probably search Zapier and Integromat and see what are all the types of tools if you're looking for whatever you're looking for, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess this, a lot of this reminds me of back in the day with if this if it
If
was pronounced
if
this
this
then that.
then that, yeah.
Exactly. Just looking at those recipes, honestly, there's probably going to be a unbundling of Zapier because like someone or Integromat or these integration pages, because all of these are essentially feature requests of like, we love your tool, but we wish it could do XYZ. Now, I don't know if if things are going to get unbundled or bundled together. I'm not quite sure how, these things are going to move over time, but for sure, I mean, I'm looking now, like you forced me to open Integromat's,
Right.
what's it called? It's amazing.
It is
And,
amazing. You
and,
could see in alphabetical order, like if you're looking for a calendar software, right? So you mentioned Calendly. Well, it shows you all the calendar softwares that you can do cool things with using Integromat, right? There's call tracking. I mean, there's all this stuff. It's pretty cool.
this just idea just popped into my head. This might be actually really interesting, which is taking like going into Ahrefs or Majestic and taking a backlink analysis of, let's say, every site that links to Calendly as an example, and then searching through those for how many of those links appear on pages with integrations in the URL, and then comparing like calendars with backlinks. And you might actually discover what the most popular tools are across different verticals and industries. So you want to figure out what's the best project management tool. You could probably figure out which one has the most integrations across the board. You'll know which one's the most popular and getting the most requests from other places.
We could do a actual podcast episode of doing a real world search for it of what's the most common things. Because when I click on forms and Integromat, there's like, if I'm like, what form should I use? Well, I could just see but your situation would find the most popular based on number of integrations across. But this is just, just choices like, oh, I'm considering a form software. Oh, I didn't even realize, I forgot about Typeform. I forgot about Wufoo. Right. And so it's just a great research tool.
Yeah. The truth is I'm thinking about this now. I don't know if anybody has a tool for this, and maybe it's a really easy thing to do. But as much as I like discovering new integrations, it may also be useful for me to have just like a browser plugin with a list of the softwares I'm currently using and technologies I'm currently using. And then as I'm browsing websites, it'll basically show me, yes, it has integrations with all of these or not, or something like that. Because I like the discovery side, but I'm looking at the form stuff and I'm thinking about forms. If I have some sort of form system I'm using, I probably just want to know if that form has an integration and nothing else, versus trying to switch. So I think there's some interesting opportunities. I think I wrote a LinkedIn post about a month ago called "Integrations are the new is the new marketing" or something like that. And I really think there's a massive, large scale opportunity. I also think there's an opportunity for freelancer networks to go vertical into tools where you could actually, live hire support or freelancers to help you with like setup, implementation, integrations, etc., as you sign up and use different softwares. So, but these kind of like in the moment that someone actually has the need, and I think that's where you want to be. So I love that recommendation of using the integrations pages to discover new tools.
Yeah, I'm looking at the time tracking, and I always wondered, like, oh, what time tracking should people use? And you could see there's Clockify, there's Harvest, there's Time Doctor. I actually at one point interviewed. So this could be good people. Like, who should that you find interesting that you should interview in? Oh, I'm looking for time, whatever, interviewing companies and time tracking, and you can actually look to see, oh, I know Liam from Time Doctor. Liam Martin. So there's a bunch of really cool. I never really, until you pointed out Integromat, I'd heard it before, but I'd never really looked into it. This is really cool. So I love this, David. Any final software tools to mention before we end?
Yeah.
Maybe on your phone. Like, I don't know if there's
Oh,
anything interesting on your phone that you use, like as apps or something like that.
let's find out. the apps I use most often on my phone. So I use the Google Ads app pretty regularly. So that's definitely useful for my specific use case. I use Workflowy on my phone. Now, obviously people love tools like Notion and Guru and things like that, but I don't use it very often on my phone. I use my banking app. Oh, I got it. Perfect. Cam Scanner. This app has been just like a lifesaver for me for probably 6-7 years now. But anytime I need to scan anything, I mean, nowadays, I guess technically you could just use the camera on your phone, but Cam Scanner just is a great scanner. You can pay for premium and have built-in OCR that recognizes what you're scanning. But, my accountant sends me over some tax documents I need to sign and send back over to him. And I just print it out, sign it, snap a picture with my phone, and I could very easily just send it to him via email, and then it saves it, also backs it up either in their cloud or on my device. So Cam Scanner is by far one of the longest lasting apps I've been using. And obviously I use all the fundamentals, like Slack or Skype or WhatsApp. I'm in WhatsApp a lot. Trying to see some. I use my YouTube app a lot. Podcast Addict is a podcast player I use a lot. Although I have like 6 podcast players. I'm trying to think if there's any other apps that I really love and really use.
For me, LastPass is a big one. I use LastPass a lot, obviously.
So I have a LastPass account. I use it a lot. I haven't used it a ton lately, because I've been scaling back, the amount of clients and softwares I've been using. So I haven't had to, share logins as often lately. But no question, LastPass is excellent. Otter is another. I mean, it's an app or a desktop thing that I use, which it's a really great UI for editing and transcription recordings. What I specifically use it for is every Zoom call I'm on that I record, it automatically uploads it to Otter. Otter automatically recognizes the speakers, transcribes it. And it's just, there's lots of tools that do this today. Some summarize, some this. I tried a bunch. I find Otter's editor to be the most intuitive and functional for me, so that it's just great. And then it also backs it up and saves the transcription in Dropbox for me. And so I love that. I use that, for everything. Use Workflowy on my phone a lot. My Starbucks app I use probably every other day, every day. That's really, I don't really do a ton more.
No, that's a great list. So a couple of the big ones: Workflowy, SaneBox, Text Expander, and Power Query for Excel, and Integromat. Check it out. Check more episodes of the podcast out. David, thanks as always.
Thanks so much. That was awesome.
Thanks for listening to the Fixing Incentives podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.